Look, real talk, the constant, ear-grating whining about Disney-era Star Wars has to end. No! Star Wars. I really don't feel like I need to elaborate on this. But of course I'm gonna anyway. The first film came out in 1977, 12 years before the birth of yours truly, and it was a cultural mainstay overnight. The only reason its well-earned position of the most beloved and iconic sci-fi film franchise in cinema history could even be remotely contested is if A, Star Trek had started out in film instead of TV, or B, you made a watertight argument that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is exclusively science fiction. But we may or may not be getting to that fanboy cluster cuss anytime soon. Hashtag recast T'Challa. But of course, with every film franchise comes the fans. Like-minded individuals converging on the product like flies on a freshly laid turd, ready to discuss, recount, dress up in silly costumes, and make all too clear the demand for more iterations of their bully-attracting hyperfixation. This of course leads to gatherings, watch parties, enthusiast conventions, and massive celebrations where we conveniently forget how shitty we acted towards Hayden Christensen. He is a Canadian treasure and must be protected! Well, I appear to have gotten ahead of myself, for as with the bright, cheery, hopeful side of things, just like in the galaxy far, far away, there must also be the dark side. For every joyous and optimistic fan, there is the grim cynic. For every open-minded fan, there is the irrational dogmatist. For every fan cheering for their cinematic heroes at Star Wars Celebration, there is the neck-bearded troglodyte at home clacking away at his keyboard, finishing a profanity and slur-laden argument over how much he despises Disney. Show me on the doll where I hurt ya. This is nothing new, of course. Star Wars fans hate Star Wars. This is a fact. Self-professed fans have been pissing and moaning about Star Wars for literal decades. The only thing that changes from gripe to gripe is the target of their ire. During the prequels era, it was Jake Lloyd, Jar Jar Binks, and George Lucas himself. While the Clone Wars series first aired, the target was Ahsoka. Words would soon be eaten on that front. The sequels made them mad at a black stormtrooper, a female Jedi, and Kelly Marie Tran for reasons I have yet to fathom. And these days, their yearly scapegoat is a black inquisitor and literally anyone that ever took a breath in the Acolyte. Hell, even in the days of the original trilogy, people had it out for Ewoks. Ewoks! How miserable of a human being do you have to be to hate Ewoks? I'm guessing the same soulless cretins who hate porgs. Look at that little face! And yet for all their pathetic screeching, no Star Wars project since the Clone Wars movie has been genuinely panned. And if you saw my Megamind video, I'm certain you'll remember my thoughts on that particular strand of cognitive dissonance. By the way, I should probably bring up the last time everyone shit their collective pants over an animated movie that no one ever said was a proper sequel that turned out to only exist as a pilot to an animated series that was unfairly graded like a proper film in its own franchise. You and I both know you threw the same shit fit then that you're throwing now. But it's no secret that Star Wars isn't hated by the so-called fandom menace because of its quality or performance. The receipts don't lie. All 12 movies made back their budget and then some, with 4 of them breaking $1 billion, and one of these 4, The Force Awakens, joining the ever-exclusive 2 billion club. It's also the highest-grossing film of all time in the domestic box office, but for the love of God, don't tell James Cameron! With the exception of The Phantom Menace, The Rise of Skywalker, and The Clone Wars, all the movies are considered fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and excluding Attack of the Clones and Solo, all of those are certified fresh. What is the difference? I don't know. You don't know. No one knows. Whatever, moving on. There hasn't been a single live-action theatrical release that didn't receive at least a nomination at the Academy Awards, and the first 3 movies are currently warming 3 coveted spaces in the Library of Congress itself. Not that I hold much affection for the government these days.
Trumpy, you can do
stupid things.
So what's the issue? Well, Star Wars is, like any other nerd fandom, an old boys club. And it may seem strange to believe it now, but once upon a time, it was considered a societal norm for straight white males to be into nerd fandoms, while everyone else was excluded. Girls couldn't like Star Wars because they should be interested in makeup, having children, and the color pink. Black people and Latinos couldn't like Star Wars because we were still hot off the heels of segregation. Gay people couldn't like Star Wars because they like men?
As you can see, the reasoning for such beliefs was rather difficult to define.
But as society changed and relaxed its unreasonably tight butthole, more people of all kinds, backgrounds, cultures, and persuasions have been rightfully emboldened to openly enjoy nerd fandoms, thanks primarily to the rising popularity of anime in the West, and especially the rise of superheroes in popular culture. Refer to my earlier comment about the MCU. MCU Real Talk coming soon? Maybe. And Star Wars was no exception. In fact, the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars animated series helped lift up the mainstream awareness of Star Wars to heights it only ever saw in its heyday. Popularity for one of the biggest sci-fi media franchises of all time was on the rise and would only get higher. And this naturally attracted the attention of the rabid bloodhounds over at Disney, who came knocking on the door of Skywalker Ranch like the metaphorical Jehovah's Witnesses of media and asked, "Hey, that's a nice property you got there, Georgie, old boy. You know, we've got some money right here. Lots of it, in fact. More than even you would ever know what to do with. Maybe you'd be interested in a deal, huh? Would ya?" It's a good thing George Lucas is far too protective of his property and far too considerate of Star Wars' massive fan base to ever go through with a deal like that. Oh. Man, fandoms suck. Now, before I get too much deeper into this than I already have, allow me to offer my credentials as a Star Wars fan. I grew up with the original Star Wars trilogy, unedited and untouched on VHS, so I was there for the little orange blob under Luke's landspeeder. I was there for the bare, sterile, white hallways of Cloud City, and yes, I was there for I saw all 3 prequels and all 3 sequels when they first came out in theaters. I had almost every single major character in action figure form in the early to mid-2000s, including the Yoda action figure with a little magnet in his hand to simulate him force-pulling his lightsaber into his hand for his duel with Count Dooku in Episode 2, which is the best one-on-one duel in the series, fight me. I was obsessed with Rogue Squadron, Episode 1 Racer, Bounty Hunter, and Jedi Power Battles when I was a kid. The Revenge of the Sith movie tie-in game is one of the best movie tie-in games of all time. Fight me! I regularly played the Star Wars version of the Life board game with my family growing up. I could write a whole analysis on the symbolism of Ahsoka slashing one half of Darth Vader's mask during the Twilight of the Apprentice episode of Rebels, and Obi-Wan slashing the other half during Episode 6 of the Kenobi series. And I have. So I don't want to hear anything from these Rey-hating knuckle-draggers about how I'm not a real fan or how I'm just a Disney shill. You think if Disney was paying me to be nice to Star Wars, I'd be posting videos seeking validation from you people? Think, Mark! Think! Wrong mark! Anyway, it's these deplorables who saw that times were changing, the franchise was changing, and the way people consumed this media was changing. The people themselves didn't. In addition to the shitstorm caused by projects like The Last Jedi, Solo, The Rise of Skywalker, The Book of Boba Fett, and Andor, now we have a show that received backlash the moment the trailer was released by people who swear up and down that they care about the quality of the writing. This idiocy, for example, was posted a month before the show even came out, but yeah, let's pretend it's because of the writing. As I said before, Star Wars in its current state is not inviting all this acidity because of its quality. The Acolyte is one of the most viewed streaming programs of July 2024 and is currently sitting pretty at 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. I get that it's not exactly Andor, but that's still excellent. And for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, @DollarCoinAudio, here's my little impromptu review of The Acolyte. Slight spoilers for those who haven't seen. So I just binged #The Acolyte, and I don't see what the problem is. This show was awesome! It highlights the sociopolitical complexities of the Jedi, shows that the Jedi weren't always good but not straight up evil either, and had kick-ass lightsaber choreo. Overall, excellent SW. It also made it clear that the Sith, for all their posturing that the Jedi are not the bastions of decency they claim to be, are not much better. It's their frustration with the Jedi that causes them to endanger lives while taking a low road path specifically to spite them. It also gave us a look at a different point in galactic history, they need to do that more often, gave us an intriguing villain in the form of the Stranger, and sets up Darth Plagueis in canon. What's not to like? Honestly, we all know what's not to like for these fools. It's the reason they scramble around looking for a plausible deniability shield to blame. When George wrote Star Wars, it was always about the story. These talentless idiots are only interested in injecting their political wig messaging and destroying what George created. Remember when we thought this was as bad as Star Wars could get? Silly us. The power of $180 million down the drain! don't care about Star Wars anymore. She's about a decade late for this to be considered edgy, original, or relevant. Disney and JJ know slut its own life support. They will do whatever it takes, number 2, get the singular fans' attention. Nostalgia will be their main weapon.
You know what? Y'all got it. You Disney Star Wars fans can have the brand. You killed it. And continue to double down on a terrible product and the direction it's gone. As much as it hurts to say, something I've loved my entire life is unrecognizable. And I see it's just not for me.
Doesn't it care about Star Wars that hire talented writers who respect and understand the source material, like the Cobra Kai writers? Instead, they hire talentless hacks like Leslie Headland, who inserts her own agenda and bias into SW with no respect for the original source. So yeah, you all know the reason I'm talking about. It's the one they always cling to the most. Even when they try to give a million different excuses, they really only have one complaint, and have only ever had one complaint. Remember my Megamind video? At worst, it'll be so bland and ineffectual that it'll fade into obscurity and be relegated to the haunted depth shores of nerd channels like Star Wars Theory, where the echoes of I Told You So will roll across the landscape and reverberate off the mountains and through the valleys amid the screechy, whiny seagull cries of woke. Yes, woke. The eternal boogeyman of the American far right. The shadow lurking in their closet. The monster under their couch. The big mean menace that has caused them so much misery. But what is wokeness exactly? What is the definition of such a frightening concept that makes these people quake in their white polos and sweat in their MAGA hats? I'll tell you what it is. It's everything that's not them. It's any human being that hops up next to them on that bench and makes them suddenly suffer from aggrieved entitlement. It's the outside world that terrifies them and makes them run back to the comforts of the shadows on the cave wall. Thanks, Plato! It's every group in America that has ever been oppressed that is now rising up to kick them in the balls and tell them to stop. And in their indignant sniffling, they concoct a term that covers every single one of these marginalized groups that puts them back in their place for ever daring to rise up from their station and demand something better. It ties back to what I said earlier about Star Wars being an old boys club. They were so used to that notion that when someone else comes along wanting to join in the science fiction merriment, it stands as a repellent against those that would disrupt their segregated contentment. It satisfies their undue resentment without having to place too much stock in differentiating who they hate and why. Basically, it's a catch-all term for the other people. That way they can say fat, tranny, and cunt all in the same word without tipping off the censors on their social media poison of choice, or taking the time to pay special attention to each group that arrests so much of their ire, while simultaneously alerting their fellow bigots how they feel and that they feel the same way. Because the one thing large, loud groups of ignorant white men need is solidarity. Here's the thing though. For all the Rise of Skywalker's flaws, the one thing most everyone could agree on was that its ending showing ships of all shapes and sizes from all corners of the galaxy uniting against the threat of the return of tyranny and oppression was so epic, so cathartic, and so very needed for the times we live in now. And the biggest truth behind that scene, the truth they don't want to hear, is that while there may be quite a lot of their ilk on social media skulking and sleazing around waiting to incorrectly define the term Mary Sue for the 4 trillionth time, the fact of the matter is that there are more of us rising up against oppression, more of us asserting ourselves and taking our place in visual media, and more of us showing our kids and grandkids that yes, they can do that too. So to all you anti-woke crusaders out there review bombing the Acolyte and evaporating the credibility of consumer reviews, going so far as to review bomb similarly named products out of absolute pure spite and ignorance of what you're actually trying to do, I say this. At this point, you people have 2 options. You can either keep your bigoted, entitled beliefs and be relegated to the dustbin of antiquity, or you can put on your big boy tighty-whities, put away the Boba Fett sippy cup, and accept with grace and humility that the galaxy far, far away does not revolve around you! You expect popular culture to cater to you after generations of enjoying the exclusive cultural brand deal of humanity. And when people who don't look like you, act like you, or have sex like you come along wanting a piece of that pie, you have to try and make them feel like shit about it. You expect people to believe you're framing your impotent rage as valid concerns for the quality of the franchise when that quality never faltered. You expect us to feel sorry for you like your childhood is being taken away from you when all you're being asked to do is share your toys with the other kids. And true to your usual form of a bunch of bratty kindergartners, you throw a temper tantrum and hoard all the Lego for yourself. It's pathetic, it's degrading, and it's getting really old. So for everyone's sakes, including your own, stop expecting the universe to bend over backwards for you, you entitled little bastards! Well, that took a lot out of me. Rant over. And for those of you who are enjoying Star Wars, no matter who makes it or who's in it, don't stop. You're the light side in this struggle. You're the spark that keeps this fandom alight. You unite true fans all over the world and encourage new people to join in and lift up this brand we all love so dearly. Yes, Star Wars does make mistakes every so often, but it's nothing that can't be addressed with dignity and respect without having to put each other down over which version of canon we adhere to. I, for example, wish I could have been able to enjoy the Ahsoka series more if it hadn't focused on a completely different character for 85% of its run. Does everybody have to be a Jedi now? But I still enjoyed its good parts, and I have a feeling all of you understand where I'm coming from. You don't condemn Star Wars with hate and derision. You don't peddle divisiveness and resentment for views. You oppose toxicity without even thinking about it, just by being you. And for that reason, I salute you. I personally don't know what's next for Star Wars. Supposedly we're getting another season of Andor, Filoni's take on the Heir of the Empire series that kickstarted the original Star Wars Expanded Universe, and a new trilogy featuring Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order. This year, the new series Skeleton Crew will be coming out, which everyone seems to believe is effectively Goonies in space, which I can totally get behind. And if any of you even try to come after these precious babies, I will hunt you down and herd you like a nerf. I don't know what they plan to do with these ideas, but if it's anything like what we've seen so far, I'm gonna stay optimistic and not cry and piss myself the second a black woman shows up on screen. In the meantime, I'll keep working on my Star Wars fan fiction and labor under the delusion that Lucasfilm will ever adapt it into a series. Who knows, I might adapt it into a fan series here on Dollar Coin Audio. Voice actors, keep an eye out! Now, let's keep pushing for Acolyte Season 2 and get some more signatures on that petition, and pray the Fandom Menace backlash won't be quite as bad. May the Force be with us all. Hey everybody, this is James from Dollar Coin Audio, and thanks a lot for watching the video. Be sure to leave me a like if you want to see more, and share it with your friends, especially the ones who are Star Wars fans. I don't mind a comment every so often either, and a subscribe would be super helpful. If you want to see more of this kind of pop culture commentary right now, here's the Megamind video I referred to earlier, where I talk about the movie, the direct-to-streaming sequel and series, and the general assorted blabbity-blab that followed. If you'd like to see something entirely different, this other video is a project that I've been working on for a couple of years now. It's called Zell, and it's a visual novel series taking place in a dystopian alternate universe where demons rule the world, and one half-demon is set to take them all down. It's super mature, a bit graphic, and deals with sensitive themes, but I plan to make this my main flagship series in the future, so if you're okay with the more grown-up fare, go give it a try. Thanks again, everyone, and see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves and have a good one.